Another Sunday, another case of the scaries to start your work week. Welcome to the newest edition of the Sunday Scaries, where we have all your gore, lore, and more, covering all the latest horror happenings, slicing open all the latest horror news, and dissecting it bit by bit, finding all those juicy innards. Pour that cup of coffee and turn on your fright light while we take you on a tour of terror. I'm Luke Janesco.
And I'm Dylan Newell.
On another busy week in the horror community. So much news to get through. We always have trouble deciding what things we're going to talk about here on the Sunday Scaries, but we always pull it together at the last minute.
Oh yeah, this was definitely one of those weeks where, unlike last week, where it was a lot of big franchise news, where it was like we kind of saw where the news was going to go, where we kind of were like, as things were getting announced and things were coming out, we were kind of like, okay, this makes sense. There are just a lot of stories this week, a lot of avenues we could have gone. I know at one point it was just kind of like we thought we had it figured out, and then some more stuff got announced, and it's just kind of one of those weeks where it's like this show in many multiverses could have been anything. Like there could have been other stories we selected, but that's always the beauty of the horror community. There's always something going on, it seems like.
Yeah, because it's always fun to discuss, I guess, those, like, I would say, heavy hitters, so to speak. I mean, we had Killer Clowns, we had Halloween stuff, so
Evil
all
Dead.
the basics that you cover. But I always love when those kind of random stories drop where it's like, well, that could be interesting to talk about and can kind of, I suppose, lead to an interesting discussion that, you kind of, we always do it on either Splattercast or the Sunday Scaries where we jump from A to B to C and then all the way down to F, so it's kind of like
Mm.
getting all those kind of long tangents there. So it's always in mind when I guess picking those stories of what kind of discussions can we have? What can we get out of one story alone, and where is it going to take us? We always take you again on a thrill ride here on the Sunday Scaries.
We always do our best. And speaking of doing our best, since it is the 4th of the month as this is being posted, just wanted to say that we did hit our goal last month of 50 subs, which is awesome. We thank you guys so much for subscribing and keeping up with us. This has been awesome. It's been really great to reach this goal already. I mean, we've only been at this for a few months. And I mean, the fact that we're getting there and we can see the consistency building each and every week is just truly something special, something great. And I just wanted to say thank you guys. Our next goal is 60. We are on the road to 100, hopefully by the end of the Halloween season. And we do have a big month planned for you in October where we hope to have kind of a big push as far as, that stuff goes.
And it's always funny how that happens because, we had set that goal of 50 and we were hoping we would get there. And then, you always go on these like few days of not really getting anything. And then one day it all just hits, because,
Mm-hmm.
you get two or three and you're not really expecting it. You're thinking maybe, one a day. But sometimes once you go 4 days without getting a subscription, it's like, oh man, you get a few more, and that always keeps us motivated once we know people are subscribing, the content that we're creating, whether it's an hour or 3 hours, depending on if we're talking about dog soldiers. But, it's like that kind of keeps us motivated, think about new and interesting things that maybe we can kind of create and bring to the channel because we know people are going to be consuming it. And like you said, big plans for Halloween to try and make the channel probably as unique as we can get it, because again, we've talked about it. We've been podcasting a while and we've always had huge plans during Halloween. And there really hasn't been that kind of, I guess, follow through in a sense where we always, we go through those.
Something always comes up.
Yeah. So it's like now we have a lot of big things kind of in the works now. So it should be very interesting by the time we get to October.
I would say so. And I mean, we've had a lot of great things come through just this week alone. A lot of big moves being made behind the scenes. So I'm really happy about that. And, we're definitely going to have some interesting content, some unique content. We're going to be kicking some things off that might be even become a little bit more regular on the channel. So it will be a big month. So if you haven't subscribed yet and you just kind of check us out, week by week, or we just pop up in your recommendations. If you think we deserve it, hit that subscribe button because, like I said, we're making big promises, but we're gonna do our absolute best to follow through on every single one of them. You guys will be getting some form of information later this month. I can tell you that much. We will be announcing what we're doing for Halloween before everything starts trickling out. So
Yeah.
keep an eye out.
It should be an interesting, I guess, almost a transitionary period where, I would say coming out of October, Splattercast as a whole channel will really be kind of in its form. It'll
Mhm.
be Friday 13th Part 3 where Jason gets his mask.
I
So
hope
it's like
so. That's
kind
yeah.
of that defining moment, I think, where we'll really come out of there kind of look. The audience will know exactly what we're going to be doing going forward and what to expect, because we always have so many different things in the works. I mean, there are things getting over certain humps. You finally got the new machine, so now we're really
Hmm.
off and kicking. So it's like we're really going to get to that point of getting into that rhythm, getting things out that we've wanted to get out, and we've kind of just now decided to kind of wait till October to really kind of unveil those certain things.
Yeah, and I mean, I always mention my little dry erase board over here of ideas, plans, things. There are still many things on there. I've even taken away things that we've completed, and I've added new things to replace those things. So it's always evolving here on Splattercast. So I'm excited. We do have a little section called show ideas, and it is quite full. So I'm really excited to get some of those out. I know Luke is too. He showed me some previews of some things he's got cooking for you guys. It's going to be a little more him centric. So I'm excited. I like the energy that you're bringing to that. I know I've been hot on that idea since you brought it to me and said this is what you're going to do. I think it's going to be real unique and something I don't think I've actually ever really seen much on a horror channel. So I'm
Yeah, I don't think so
excited
either.
to really see how that goes for you and see where that takes off. And I
Yeah.
I ass- I might pop in there a couple times, you know what I mean, like here and there, and give
Yeah,
my
yeah.
2 cents.
And well, because that's kind of, again, not to get on a huge tangent of what's to be, but that's kind of one of the things that I've kept in mind, where it's like, oh, well, this will be fun to do solo in a sense, but then I also have a giant column of things that me and Dylan will also be, tackling, because it's like I know he has a knowledge of particulars. So it's kind of like, kind of a coming together in a sense. Um, Kind of weaving in and out of when there's things that Dylan finds very interesting, but uh to be continued in October.
Yes. We won't get into any more. Maybe we'll do like a town hall or something after the big announcement, so that way we can kind of talk to you guys about like what the plans are going forward, because we can definitely get some stuff going. But before we get the show started, as we usually do, this is becoming an ongoing segment, and I will make sure to keep myself kind of in check here before I go on a long tangent about it. We did get some Friday the 13th news, a couple of updates. So the first thing is that Sean Cunningham, we talked about his cameo last week. And how he had a little note on there in the description talking about a Friday the 13th movie, almost said Halloween, Friday the 13th movie coming in 2023. That was removed. So we don't know what that means. Like I said, I want to give some credit to Mike from We Watched a Movie, because he was the one to first cover this, and I watched his coverage of it. And I think he said it pretty, like, probably the best, where, it's basically we don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. We really just we aren't in a position to really tell. It could be something where it's just like, oh, Sean Cunningham was just kind of talking out of his ass, didn't expect it to get that big, and now that all these people reported on it, and like Bloody Disgusting reporting on it and stuff like that, that he kind of was like, well, maybe I should take this away. Or on the other hand, it could be a production company behind the project saying, hey, you should take that off your Cameo, because we don't want anybody talking about that right now. We're not ready to release information. So that's the first bit of news. The second bit, really, I think, for me, cements that we're going to be getting a Friday the 13th soon. And that, for me, is because New Line Cinema, the guys who brought us things like Freddy versus Jason and Jason Goes to Hell, Jason X, not the best entries, but
Those are
they
the best.
In your opinion, yes,
definitive.
but they are not quality. They upset me, but I do own them because of course I own the box set, and I do watch them because I don't know, I just like to torture myself sometimes. Um, the gist of it is that they had a little screenshot that they put on Instagram first and foremost on their official Instagram for New Line Cinema, where it just looks like a little iPhone background, and it has an Instagram message request from Jason Voorhees, and it says, "Uh-oh, what does Jason want?" And yeah, that's pretty suspect. It's not up there anymore. They did remove it. But I did see some people on Twitter talking about that it was still posted on Facebook. And I don't know, man. It's just like, they are one of the many studios that Jason has been passed off to from time to time. It's mostly between them and Paramount. I believe that it was Platinum Dunes, Paramount, and I think New Line Cinema had a little bit to do with the 2009 film. I think it was kind of all three of those guys got that together. And then, so it's, depending on who the rights went with when it comes to, Sean Cunningham and who he decided to go with. I mean, it could have been, if it maybe this is a sign that New Line Cinema now holds the primary, distribution rights for Halloween, or sorry, Friday the 13th, and that's where it's going to end up. I don't know. Sorry, I got Michael Myers on the brain. We're getting so close to Halloween ends. So, but that's pretty much everything. That's all I got right now for it. So, I think that we are right on the cusp of a Friday the 13th movie being announced, and it's just a matter of time. I'm thinking either right before Halloween Ends comes out or Halloween, the holiday itself. Those would be my best guesses.
And going into the Sean S. Cunningham kind of cameo, I don't want to say announcement, but sentence that he initially put up. And I was leaning more so not putting too much stock in that, because it's just like, I mean, you can put anything you want up there. It doesn't
You
really
can.
matter. So, but to think that, no one was going to latch on to it, I think wouldn't make any sense, because I mean, like, it would, again, we've touched on it, how hungry Friday 13th fans are for a new installment, that I feel like the fans will latch on to anything that they see, and there's potential there to be a new installment. They're gonna take that ball and they're gonna run with it. But and I could see him getting rid of it and just being like, oh well, I was messing around. I didn't know that it was gonna, take on a life of its own.
Hmm.
But for New Line to kind of get into the mix here, and to actually post something, whether they took it down or didn't take it down, doesn't matter. They did do it, and I mean, no matter if you had intentions of taking it down, people are going to screenshot it. It's going to take on a life. It's going to live on the internet forever now. It's not like as soon as you delete it that it doesn't exist anymore. It's out there. People know of it. So to kind of take that risk, if there is nothing in the works, wouldn't make any sense. And it wouldn't look great on New Line Cinema.
No, it
So,
wouldn't be. It wouldn't look great on any of them,
yeah.
honestly. Sean Cunningham, anybody just to ultimately just be messing with the fans, not a good look.
Yeah, because I mean, it's a diehard fan base. So,
Hmm.
uh, I can't think that there isn't at least something in the works, something tangible going to come of this. Maybe they weren't supposed to be announcing or messing around with anything in terms of an announcement right now, and that's kind of why they had to backpedal a little bit and take those things down. And because what was that initial thing that the one producer said, maybe by the end of the year, hopefully, that we would hear
Yes,
something.
so it was pretty much. He says before the end of the year we would have some sort of an announcement.
Yeah, so and I don't
Um,
know how legal things work in that sense, where it's like, oh well, you can, even though it's ironed out now, you can't say anything until such and such date. I don't know if that's the kind
I
of
don't know
scenario
if
that
it's
they're in.
necessarily that as much as kind of where I think the news is headed with this is more that they want to, like, the gist that I'm getting from everything that I'm reading is that the movie's supposed to come out next year.
Yeah,
That's what everybody seems to believe, and from leaks and little things that we've heard. So it could very well just be them finalizing a few things, getting their ducks in a row here to quickly announce this thing. Because if we're talking about this coming out, say, like we said, next October, Friday the 13th, if they announce this, say on Halloween or when Halloween Ends comes out, they are probably just going to want to gun us out with a teaser trailer and then just kind of go from there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I said, the teaser trailer could easily just be like any soundbite from one of the original movies and the ha 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 thing and just a date. And like that's all you'd have to do. But I think they want to get their marketing finalized and put into effect here. And I'm sure, that there's a few things behind the scenes they need to finalize before they can really get this going. But they seem to be eager
Yeah.
with these little leaks and these little things going on. It just seems, if this had been if the cameo thing happened last week and then we didn't have anything this week or next week, that could have just been a fluke. That could have
Yeah.
just been, one of those things where I'm like, okay, it is what it is. But like you said, the New Line thing happens and it's just kind of like, this is too, the, the initial story, those two, I think they're way too
Yeah.
close together for this all to just be a coincidence.
Yeah.
If it
So I
is, it's a
mean,
sick joke.
yeah, which I guess it could be. Who really knows?
I fucking hate that.
Hope is
Like,
a pesky flaw of the human condition, I suppose. And when it kind of comes to Friday 13th, the horror community, I mean, we've waited so long for a new installment that we're gonna take anything that we can get and hopefully spin it into there's a new film being made. I mean, do I think there's something tangible there? I hope so. I do think that there is. I'm really hoping for an official announcement, like when you had pitched. I think it was last week when you said maybe we'll get just a very little teaser
mhm.
during the Halloween ends. I think that would be perfect. I don't know if that will happen, but I would be thrilled. I'm ready to revisit Crystal Lake. It can't come soon enough.
Yeah, and the last bit I'll say about that is just because I think the synergy would be right. I think that, we're coming to the end of this trilogy. Clearly, Michael's going to go back on the shelf for a little while, is kind of the consensus that we're hearing and that we're getting. So it's just kind of like, well, let's see who's going to step into his shoes. And I'm sorry. I know that a lot of you guys are Saw fans and you like Saw. And like I said, I think the first one's great. I don't really have much desire or love for the sequels. But they already announced Saw 10. They know it's coming out next year. And if that was kind of the synergy that they wanted, I think that they would have waited for that for Halloween. But I think if there's a Friday the 13th movie coming over, I think that they would easily put Jason in that prime spot over, Jigsaw any day of the week. And
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, like, just too big.
I mean, Saw's horror, but like it's not the icons I feel like in terms of, it's
It's
not a
not on the
replacement
Mount
for Michael.
Rushmore of horror characters, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And where it's like, you have the slasher, so you have Michael, you have Jason, Ghostface to an extent, I feel, Leatherface, to a certain extent, where
Freddy
those
Krueger.
ones are in a different league than something like The Conjuring, and even Saw, where it's like I don't put Saw in that league with them. So yes, I think Saw is going to do big numbers because it's going to be Halloween and everything, but it's not an adequate replacement if that's kind of what their thought process was. And,
Mhm.
I think those two can coexist and would never be a choice in between Jigsaw and Friday the 13th or Jigsaw in Halloween because those are very different realms of horror, I think. So, it's not a replacement. Friday the 13th would be the kind of relay race in a sense. They pick up the baton and they carry this thing through for the next few years until Michael comes back or Freddy shows up, because I think we're all very eager to live in a world where we're seeing all three of those icons coming out with new films regularly. And I think that's
Mhm.
what everyone wants and that's what we're all waiting for.
We want the 80s 2.0. So,
Exactly. Stranger
but
Things
yeah,
isn't good enough.
not enough for us. But okay, let's wind it down. I said it would be short-lived and we talked almost 10 minutes on it, but hey,
It never happens.
it's Friday the 13th, baby. I mean, once this thing starts really picking up steam, like it's almost like we're kind of inching up the roller coaster, I would say right now. once we cross over that hill, man, it's all downhill. Like I might do a weekly update thing for Friday the 13th. I'm that dead ass because like I fucking love this franchise. So anyway, Luke, you want to get this show started, and
Let's
I'll
do it,
keep my
brother.
mouth shut.
Well, we can move into the actual format of the show before Dylan hijacks this and makes it totally the Friday 13th scaries, I guess. But we can start this off with the kill of the week.
Oh yes.
Spooky intro there, Dylan.
No, thank you.
I wet myself already.
Very nice. Yeah, I think they're really nice additions. For those of you who didn't tune in last week, we updated everything, as you will see. Not going to go into the whole explanation again, but yeah, you got some new intros to be keeping an eye out for. So, Luke, what do we got for the kill of the week this week?
Oh boy. Well, last week we did cover a new video game that's going to be hitting the world, I guess, early of 2023, which is an iconic horror property from the 80s, Killer Clowns from Outer Space. So
Okay.
obviously seeing the game footage, revisiting the film, it gets you in that mode. You want to relive it. There's so much potential in that franchise. I own t-shirts. We'll own NECA figures when they come out. I'm sure at some point. There's already other merchandise gonna be coming out. Plus, Spirit Halloween, they have a big, section of Killer Clowns merchandise already out. So it's like it got me in the mood. It really got me in the mood. So I had to pick one of my favorite kills, probably my favorite kill of the actual film itself, and that
Okay.
is Shorty versus Slug.
Alrighty. So yes, this is obviously we're going to be covering this movie extensively, probably as the game's coming out.
Absolutely.
It's probably going to end up on Splattercast sooner rather than later, with the popularity being so big right now. But what a fun fucking movie this is. And this is one of those key moments that when you see this movie for the first time, I think this really sticks out to you.
Yeah, this would really be one of my favorites. Like Shorty in general is my favorite.
I was going to say, yeah, he's if not the most iconic clown, like he's the leader type in my opinion. I think that he's the one that kind of is the ringleader.
And for me, I have I resonate with him in a sense because I've never been the tallest person in the room, even growing up. So I'm always loved Shorty. So it's like anytime that he was on screen, just anyone in the bunch, even from like Space Jam, any of the smaller characters, I absolutely loved. So it's like I just felt like I resonate so much with him, and I love that. This scene I picked because when we do these kills of the week, it's always very almost intimate, one-on-one, very suspenseful and stuff. This is not that at all.
No, this is very tongue-in-cheek, very knows what it wants to be, and it's fun, but it's still like, and it's not even really going for that horror, but it is that kind of gore and that kind of playful sense that you get with some of this stuff. Because like the beauty of the kill of the week is that it doesn't always have to be serious. It doesn't always have to be a flaming car driving down the road about to run somebody down. It can be something, or even like last week's with Pet Sematary 2, where that's pretty traumatizing shit, seeing a pretty young kid getting fucking mangled by a motorcycle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This though, good old fashioned popcorn fun, watching a clown knock somebody's block off like Jason in Part 8.
This is one where, if you saw this in a theater with a big horror audience, everyone go wild as soon as Slug gets his head knocked off by Shorty right there. It's a lot of fun. I also do find the part I do find horrific about this is after his head is detached and they decide to cut to that wide shot of him collapsing. I find that terrifying just to see an actual human figure with no head collapsing onto the ground. And then kind of like, there is this different element between, we see horror at nighttime. That's just, they kind of go hand in hand. So when it turns into daytime horror, it's kind of a little different. It feels unique in a sense. In this one, I feel unique. It's not daytime horror, but again, it's not that intimate setting of a one-on-one. It's a group of people, no one taking Shorty seriously here. And then this guy being murdered in front of basically all his friends, so no one knows what's coming. It's a very different element. It's why I chose it because, you go look at 100 kills, there's nothing that's ever going to replicate the killer clowns here. Like, this is unique into itself. That's why this film is still being talked about. That's why merchandise come out. That's why there's a video game coming out. And again, even this kill here, prime for video game style, I feel.
No, I agree with you. And if we get into the kill here in specific, um,
Smashing his bike.
yeah, smashing it up. And I think that this is ultimately, again, I talk about it being that popcorn thing. But like truly at the end of the day, the clowns, if you're watching this as a little kid, they may probably be a little bit more freaky. I mean, we're adults and like we kind of get the tongue-in-cheek nature of this film, but like I can imagine being a kid because I didn't see this at a young age. This is not something I saw this when I was a bit older.
Yeah.
So I kind of was in on the joke. But like at the end of the day, like this could truly terrify a small child, I feel like.
Yes.
Just because they are so
Absolutely.
unsettling. Like they
Especially
are. And
especially at that time when this was about 1988, I believe. By the time that I had seen this already, it was a thing. Terrifying clowns were already kind of, at that general audience. Kids were already afraid of clowns. So to kind of see this now, this one for me never really scared me as a kid. I absolutely, growing up, I loved Killer Clowns from Outer Space. My aunt owned the VHS of it. So anytime I would go to her house for a party or anything, I would want her to put on Killer Clowns from Outer Space just because, it was the only, I never really saw it on TV. I didn't really see it on TV until I got older. And
yeah,
then it kind of came out. But that was the only time I could see it. So anytime I went to my aunt's house, I knew I'd be able to watch Killer Clowns from Outer Space. And this scene, as well as I'm forgetting which clown it was, but where he is outside and the little girl's eating inside,
oh yeah.
is
And he's like
absolutely
trying to get
terrifying.
her to come out.
Yes, so scary.
Yeah.
So there are like, there's a lot of terrifying elements in the Killer Clowns actual film itself if you really look into it.
No, I agree. And I mean, this was one that I saw on Netflix when they first started doing streaming because it lived on Netflix for a long time. I think, if I remember correctly, it was on there for a long time.
Yeah,
And like it was just one of those things where it's like I just remember hearing from relatives and stuff, just like the name get thrown out there. So finally, I threw it on one day, and I expected a true blue horror movie because I remind you, I'd never seen a trailer or anything for this at the time. And I had the reputation of it on my mind and everything, like you had said. So when I got in there and it was actually more of a funny romp, I kind of didn't know how to take it. But as I got older and would revisit the film, it was just one that every once in a while, like I think the next time I watched it was on Amazon Prime years later. And I just remember watching it and just being like, wow, this is great. Like, I think this is a lot of fun. And, it just takes time. Like at that time when I first watched it, I was really, looking for my Friday the 13th, Freddy,
yeah,
Nightmare on Elm Street, Scream, stuff like that. I wanted that more serious kind of slasher stuff. So like this really didn't resonate with me. But now the older I get, I feel like the more I enjoy this movie and the more it resonates with me. And I'm so excited for the game. I'm so excited for, like you said when we talked about the game a few weeks ago, for what life is going to come out of this. Like, what are we going to get? What are we going to get? Another film? Are we going to get a TV show? Whatever this does spin into, I think that Killer Clowns is in the public eye right now, and I'm happy that it's there.
yeah. I really do think it's gonna catch on even more. Like you were talking about Netflix, that thing lived on Netflix for a very long time. I wouldn't be surprised to see it pop up on another streaming service. I don't know if it is currently because I haven't done that research. But I could see this, especially after the game is out, that it's gonna be just, you know, basically being passed around each different streaming service because I feel like this. I think the game is going to take on a life of its own. I think it's even if you're not a huge horror fan, I think it's just going to be so much fun that a lot of non-horror fans might latch onto it just to kind of, my friends playing this, so I want to get in on the kind of camaraderie of it, I guess, in a sense. So I really feel like this will catch a general audience, especially as soon as that game comes out. So yeah, I'm very intrigued to see where this is going to lead, because this is the film itself is so much fun. Even when you're watching someone being murdered, you're having a good time.
Oh yeah, but I think it's about time we pay our respects, don't you?
I suppose, even this guy's a bastard, but still, let's do it.
In memoriam, Slug. I hate to say it, but he did deserve what he had coming to him. You don't
He
destroy a
did. You don't
clown's bike.
mess with little Shorty's bike there and then get away with it. You made him cry.
Yeah,
And
no.
how many different kills are we gonna do where the actual killer cries right before? So I mean,
Yeah,
we go through lots of different emotions here on the kill of the week. Would I say Shorty was justified in knocking his block off?
this was
100%.
this was a justifiable homicide.
There we go.
The court has ruled it here on Splattercast.
I will be a character witness for Shorty and say that this is a little bit out of character for him, and that guy was asking for it.
Well, you are quite a character, Luke.
I try to be.
There you go.
All right. Well, let's move on here to our next segment. As we are doing this recording, it is September 4th. And we have a little bit of a unique film here, a little something different, because neither of us have seen this actual film.
No, neither have I.
Trapped in the Middle Ages.
All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up.
Yes, we are talking history of horrors. And so you doing your research, this is really the most intriguing thing that you could find, I take it. So
Yeah, I mean, like, there were things out there, but nothing that was a very interesting talking point in any sense. There were a couple things that came out, but I don't feel like it was anything that either of us have actually seen. So this was the most, I would say, intriguing talking point that we could come up with. Because I didn't want to do something that was, oh, well, nothing came out today of interest, so we're going to do September 5th or September 6th. I kind of wanted to keep in line with it, even if it was something we hadn't seen, because I believe this is a very, very interesting talking point, I guess, because some of these films from this era end up as a major blind spot for me.
absolutely. And we are discussing Crawling Hand.
Yes, directed by Herbert Schrock, and this did appear on Mystery Science Theater 3000. Which, have you seen some episodes of that?
Oh yeah, I have watched so much Mystery Science Theater 3000 like over the years, just because, like, again, another thing, a lot of it was on Netflix, and then, like, I think a good bit of it ended up on Tubi, if I'm not wrong. They had
Oh,
some
okay.
stuff on there as well,
And they
and
have
then
new
even just
episodes out,
YouTube.
don't they? Isn't that a thing now?
Yes, they rebooted it. For Netflix, I watched The Gauntlet, where they did like Atlantic Rim and a couple other things on there. That's a great fun show. Like, honestly, it's one of my favorite things to throw on, like if I'm just like laying down and like going to sleep or something. Just because you can kind of just get on there, have a couple of good chuckles, and then you'll fall asleep, you'll wake up, go about your day, and then the next time you're laying down or something or relaxing, you just find your spot and throw it right back on, because it's not a hard commitment.
Yeah.
And this, when you showed me the trailer, very much seems like a Mystery Science 3000 kind of film to tackle. Very, very old, very of its time. I'd say interesting enough that I would seek this out to watch it. I'm
Yes,
curious to know if this is on YouTube. It seems like it would be in the
it
public
is.
domain.
It is. I checked it. I checked to see where it was available, and it is on YouTube in its entirety. But why don't we play the trailer real quick before we talk about it even more?
I agree.
The Crawling Hand.
Someone, please come in.
140,000. Push the red.
God, Steve, help me! Help me!
Claude, what does it mean I'm stacked?
Stacked?
Ow!
You'll experience a new dimension in motion picture thrills when you see The Crawling Hand. The Crawling Hand demands to live, commands you to see it. A disembodied hand holds the key to a killer more deadly than the supernatural. The remains of an astronaut destroyed in space fights for life. A requiem for an astronaut.
Very, very unique stuff there, for real.
Yeah, and this is one I thought it seems like it would be a lot of fun, honestly. And going into that, I think a lot of this stuff probably this was 1963, and a lot of that 50s, 60s kind of creature features, horror, science fiction. A lot of that stuff still I haven't seen, and I always mean to kind of go back and fill in those gaps, but I haven't made that commitment yet. Because I think there's a lot to learn from those films from the 50s and 60s in terms of there were I think a lot of great ideas. I think this is a very intriguing idea that could maybe be brought into the more current horror world and see what you come up with. Especially there's such I guess a level of respect from back then where the effects are not really there, so you have to make do with what you have and still try to tell an interesting story. So they were really hamstringed in a sense by a lot of things that they could not do or make work at that time, because late 70s into the 80s was really a very interesting time for special effects, in terms of kind of reaching a lot of points, a lot of significant milestones of things that we hadn't really seen before. So 50s, 60s, there were interesting stuff, but it did not evolve and like what we see today in terms of the practical effects. So, but there are a lot of very interesting ideas that maybe are only grains of ideas because they could not expand upon them fully. So I think there's a lot to learn from those 50s and 60s films.
Yeah, no, one that comes to mind that I would recommend for you that I've seen is Attack of the Killer Shrews.
Yes.
That one's pretty fun. I think that would also be in the public domain. So, like, you can probably find that one on YouTube. Really good fun with that stuff. Any of those, like you said, creature features from the 50s, it's a lot of good entertainment there still. Like, I mean, like, it's cheesy and it's not going to, really resonate with today's audiences, I feel like, as well as it did in the 50s. But, like, it's such a like a bottle, like a film trapped in a bottle. You know what I mean? Like it's so of its time usually, those kind of movies. And
Yeah.
surprisingly, I don't know if you made this connection. I feel like this movie's already been remade. And we're talking about Idle Hands.
Yeah, and that was something I was going to bring up where um it's very kind of reminiscent. You know what I mean? Where
Mhm.
it's like I could see this being almost a model for Idle Hands. I mean, it varies in a sense where, we're not dealing with an astronaut alien life form. Idle Hands, it's very much its own thing, but that kind of bare concept, you could kind of draw a lot of parallels there. So as soon as I had seen the crawling hand thing, I was like, oh, well, this kind of does, I'm a huge Idle Hands fan. So kind of going into that, I was like, oh, well, this could be interesting. So I think maybe that's what draws me to this film, because as soon as I did see this on YouTube, this is probably one I'm going to sit down and actually watch, because it does intrigue me. I think again, I think this is kind of something where you can really expand upon and maybe bring it more so into its true form, I guess, maybe into, a more current era.
Oh no, I would agree. I think if you're gonna kind of go back, I think it could be fun to really revisit some of these, 50s era horror films and just kind of see what elements you could pull into today's style and kind of, make something updated to it. And I
Yeah.
think this would be very fun. It's a very unique concept. That is one thing I will give them, a lot of very swing for the fences kind of concepts.
Yeah. And,
They didn't let
I
it
think,
render them or stop them.
and with a lot of these being on YouTube, I think I guess we're really flooded with different content that we're going to be creating. But this would be a fun kind of sit down and not necessarily poking fun at these for like the Mystery Science Theater style, but more so just sitting down and watching them and kind of taking them in maybe with a commentary or something like that, just to kind
Mm.
of uh, fill in those gaps and see the potential in some of these films.
No, I agree. I think that that's definitely something we could visit at some point down the road.
All right, well, why don't we get into some of the topics for this week, since we are pretty loaded with different things. As if the world of cheerleading wasn't cutthroat enough, the cheer squad will be worrying about more than just pom poms and high kicks this Halloween. The newest installment in the iconic cheerleading franchise will hit sci fi this fall with Bring It On, Cheer or Die. Karen Lamb will be directing, with Rebecca McKendry and Dana Schwartz writing the comedy turned horror film. With this being the seventh installment in a franchise that hasn't really had success since the original, a genre change may be just what audiences need to give this film a perfect score. Should other franchises use the Bring It On playbook and add a little more of the macabre into future installments? Now, this one really surprised me, and I brought this to you when we were talking about um, things to talk about for this episode. And I remember I said, Bring It On is going to be doing like a horror slasher, and you're like, wait, you mean the cheerleading film? And it surprised me just as much as you when I read that, because I was like, oh, this is a very interesting kind of genre shift.
It's odd. It's definitely something that if you would have put me in a room and said I had to guess what news story that we're about to cover, this would have never been on my mind ever. I didn't even know they were still making Bring It On movies. I think the last time that I had even heard of one was probably when I rented something from Netflix back when they were doing DVDs, and one of the Bring It On trailers played before it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like I didn't even know these things were still happening. Like, I'm surprised.
Honestly, I did not know until doing the research that this would be the seventh installment. I
Holy
honestly thought they
shit.
had like maybe four films or something like that. I didn't know it's made it this far, and I feel like there has been some sort of drought in terms of how many different Bring It On films there are. Just because sometimes you would see it just like, well, I guess I don't have cable, so I don't know, but you know how you'd always see those, because I think they're very much living on television more so than actual, theater releases, or probably even DVD or Blu-ray releases. So it's like I feel like maybe there hasn't been one of these releases in a decent amount of time. So it's like, well, what do we do here? What do we do to bring something different? And it's like, well, let's throw a slasher in the mix. That's big right now. But for this one, I don't know. I'm gonna give it a watch. I'm kind of intrigued. After watching Glorious and having Rebecca McKendry being a writer in here, I want to see what they do. And Dana Schwartz, I know in the blurb that I read said that she's part of She-Hulk. So it's like the writing might be behind it. I don't know. It's very intriguing concept. I'm behind a genre shift. Like, it's a bold move. So I kind of want to see what they bring to the table with this one.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know if I would necessarily be checking this one out, because for once I don't have access to like a sci-fi channel or anything like that, so it would be something I'd have to actually go and seek out. But I mean, it's intriguing. It's definitely odd, and something, like I said, I can't really wrap my mind around it. But I mean, if the franchise is really in that state where it's just like, okay, we really need to switch things up, then I mean, like, all right, go for it. Like, see if it works. I mean, I'll eat my words, as I always say, if it turns out to be great. But, I just don't know. And the fact that it's going to sci-fi still makes me believe that it's probably not going to be the greatest thing. Do we know what the kind of catalyst is for this? Like, what's going on? Are we talking slasher? Are we talking creature
Yes,
feature?
we're talking slasher. From
So
what I
is
had read, they go to an abandoned, maybe it's a school or something like that, to practice, and then they start getting picked off one by one. So this is very much a slasher.
mhm.
I don't know exactly. There isn't that much out there right now. I think this was very much very new news to a lot of people, so there isn't that much out there in terms of a synopsis or really what's going to be happening, in the film or anything like that. So I don't know too much about it. Again, going to sci-fi doesn't mean that much to me. Bring It On. Again, I don't think there has been a viable film probably since the first one because I don't really hear too many things about it. So I don't think this can hurt. I think it's a unique step out of what they've been doing. I would love to see other franchises or just films in general take advantage of this. I know in terms of like tonal shifts and things, I know that one of the big ones is like Gremlins versus Gremlins 2, where it's not like a very
Yeah.
much necessarily a full genre shift. I mean, still the Gremlins, but it's very more leaning into that sort of comedy. But I think there are things out there that, especially not necessarily franchises, but like if you wanted to do a different spin on it and not make it in terms of a pound for pound remake. You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, well, let's bring something different to this. It's like, again, we talk about horror mixes with almost anything. So I think the kind of adding a horror element into this, I think is the right move.
Yeah, no, I mean, like it's like I said before, if it's if it's really that dead in the water and you need to revamp it, then like yeah, horror is that shot in the arm that you can really add to any genre and kind of hopefully pull a little something out of it.
Yeah, it's like
Um, for me, I couldn't really think of anything too great off the top of my head for this of like what I would like to what other franchises I would like to see this happen with. The only thing that I would say, and I doubt they'd ever do this, is like an American Pie type thing, where
yeah,
it's like you kind of pull that in and do like almost like a Halloween special kind of thing with that, because they have their little spin-off movies and stuff like that, where it's like that could easily be that where it's not the main cast or anything.
yeah.
Give it a little horror twist. Let's see what happens. Maybe they all go to camp, and
But
Jason starts hacking them up.
and kind of that cast already is very reminiscent of a Friday 13th or, that
Hmm.
classic horror elements already. So let's do this. Let's do like because they have so many offshoots of random American Pie, like Bandcamp, things like that. So let's do that. You know what I mean? Let's do a slasher, and then by the end of it, turns out to be Sean William Scott, and it all ties.
Yes, yeah.
There it is.
American Pie Camp Blood. There you
There we
go.
go. And it'll be because that one random character that we have no backstory to slept with Stifler's mother, and
Mm,
he's finally getting revenge. And this will bring it. This will tie it back into the actual main franchise because then he's going to go after I'm forgetting the kid's name, the one that slept with his mother, in the first film. So
no, I
and
know.
then it's with that main cast dealing with Stifler. It'll be like I don't think you've seen like Valentine or anything like that, but
Oh, I've seen
that
them
that
all.
okay. That that classic premise of all these kids that went to high school together now
Oh,
dealing
you're
with.
talking about the movie Valentine. I thought you were talking about the Book of Love for American Pie. No, I've
Oh,
actually seen Valentine. Yeah, so I know
okay.
what you're
So you
talking
know
about, the
how
horror movie.
they all went to high school and then someone's slashing them, but
Mm,
this time they'll know it's Stifler. I think that could
there you
work.
go. That
Let's
could
write
work.
that film. We'll
Hmm.
pitch to Sean William Scott. I don't know what he's doing, but I think he might be on board for this one.
I'm down. I'm down.
And then for me, kind of, I not necessarily like a big like a franchise or anything like that. And I don't know if I've ever pitched this to you. I used to pitch it as a joke all the time. And when we were working together, with the Willy Wonka and the Oompa Loompas turning on Willy Wonka and everyone on a tour. Now, not necessarily going that route with it, but I'm saying like Willy Wonka for me kind of teeters on horror a little bit. I mean, it's so weird that if you lean into the horror element to it just even a little bit, it, you can get some very unique things out of it. So it's like and I didn't see the Tim Burton one. It didn't resonate with me. I didn't have very much interest at all. I don't know if that did anything, but I really think if you're going to do some sort of Willy Wonka property, I not necessarily it doesn't even have to be the main story, but I think that world you can really add horror into it, and it will kind of meld so well to kind of be that weird, almost A24 kind of feeling to it.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, at this point, why not? We haven't had a Willy Wonka or a Charlie and Chocolate Factory thing in a long time. So, yeah, I mean, and if they're doing fucking Winnie the Pooh with, a horror movie for that, why not? Give us something, something a little bit more out there with some of these other big names. Like, let's just, like I said, inject a little bit of horror into them and see where they go.
Let's do it with everything. You've seen that trailer that was cut for Mrs. Doubtfire where they turn it into a
Yeah,
full on horror.
yeah.
It's like, I mean, you could do it with anything. Just
You really
words.
can. Yeah, you just got to change the tone up a little bit and add some murder, some gore, some creatures, and you got yourself a horror picture, kids.
Here
But
we
yeah,
go.
this is interesting. So you'll have to let me know how this one pans out for you.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you it's A+ anyway, so just make you watch it. I think it'll be fun.
Damn, just lie to me to get me in there.
That's what I've been doing thus far. Let's move into our next topic here. Holy mackerel! Kevin Smith is discussing the possibility of a sequel to his 2014 horror film Tusk, starring Justin Long. Long said he initially thought the Mallrats creator was joking, but quickly realized he was serious when the rest of the cast received the same message. With Smith's True North trilogy still incomplete as fans still wait to hear any updates on Moose Jaws, calling a sequel to Tusk didn't seem to be on anyone's bingo card for the year. Is there more story to tell in the Tusk universe? Maybe. Does Kevin Smith have a fetish for putting Justin Long in a walrus costume? I sure hope so, because I do. With the first film being so divisive, will a Tusk sequel sink or swim? Dylan, what are your thoughts on this one?
So I am a Kevin Smith fan. I do like most of his filmography. I'll just be right up front and say it. And I just think that overall he is somebody in the Hollywood space that I enjoy hearing his opinions and thoughts on. I like his podcast, Fat Man Beyond, and stuff like that. So it's one of those things where it's like I'm in the world of Kevin Smith. I kind of feel like I'm a defender of him a lot of the time because I feel like he does get a lot of flack for his movies. But at the end of the day, it's kind of one of those things where it's like he's a true creative who, really does try to do different things. And he really does try to change it up a little bit. And overall, I just think that he's just such a joy to listen to him talk about film. And you can really see that passion in there. I mean, Clerks is just, in my opinion, one of the best movies ever. I think, like, as far as anybody who wants to be a filmmaker and wants to learn. And then you kind of have his, filmography as it goes along with, like, Mallrats and, Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, Chasing Amy, all that stuff. And then you kind of get to this point where he does something really radically different with Red State, which is actually a really great movie. I really like Red State. Have you seen it?
Oh, I've seen it. I have it
Oh
on
yeah,
my Voodoo.
yeah, it's awesome. I
Yeah.
think it's really well done. And then he kind of gets into the you know early 2010s. You start getting some of this stuff where you have something like Tusk come out, and it was very divisive. Very much one of those things where it was like you said in the write up, divisive because it's odd. It's body horror. But I think the movie has a real balance issue where it's like it is very much kind of leaning on that comedy aspect, that kind of classic Kevin Smith comedy aspect for so long, and then it just gets kind of ripped away. And then you're kind of dealing with more of a serious body horror where I don't know if it works as smoothly as it could have, but I still think overall it's an interesting concept. There's not another movie like it when it comes to turning a man into a walrus. And it's one that I do like throwing on every once in a while, and I do think is not nearly as bad as what some people have said.
Yeah. And honestly, I have never seen Tusk. Again, a blind spot for me. Until I had read that, this little blurb, and I was like, oh, that could be interesting to talk about. So I did go ahead and finally pull the trigger on Tusk. And I will say, I thought it was very intriguing. I was not disappointed in any sense. Because I had heard so many conflicting things on this, and mostly negative. Talking to you, I think you were more positive than I had heard anyone ever speak of Tusk. And I mean, like, the idea of it intrigued me. I just wasn't sure if it was something that I was going to really find interesting as soon as I sat down and watched it. If it was going to be one of those 10-minute films where I turn it on, I'm like, it's not really hitting for me, so I'm gonna turn it off. So I knew, kind of discussing this, I was gonna have to make that full commitment to watch it, and I'm honestly, I'm glad I did. I thought it's very interesting. Tonally, I don't know if for me at least, I didn't feel it had that problem where, because I had texted you and I said, I almost feel like he is kind of poking fun at a lot of, I guess, what is now termed elevated horror, because especially as the credits roll and he's talking about where, they're on his podcast, they're kind of poking fun at what the ending would be. So for me, I feel like he kind of intertwines that horror with. I don't feel like the comedy ever really gets stripped away fully, because I feel like he's self aware in every sense. Where especially Johnny Depp's character, when he shows up and they're talking, for that awkwardly long time, on the porch about the brown recluse, and going down to have poutine weenie, all this random stuff. Again, there's comedy there, and that's very short a short time before we end up toward the end, where Michael Parks is fighting Justin Long dressed as a walrus. You know what I mean? Where it's like,
Yeah.
I think Kevin Smith is fully aware of how absurd this whole thing is, and I think he kind of set out to make an almost absurd art house film for people to almost say, oh well, actually, finding all these kind of social commentaries in here. So I feel like, that comedy kind of maintained throughout the entire film. So, I think it works for me. And the idea, just seeing Justin Long in the walrus kind of costume, whatever you want to say, whatever you want to call it, absolutely unsettling.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
it's so weird.
Oh,
So
the ending, dude, where he's in the no spoilers for Tusk. It's been out for a few years, but the ending with him in the pen at the
yes,
zoo, like horrifying, really fucked up shit.
where it's just like, he's come to terms with it almost, where it's like he's conscious still of, his former life, as you can, at least I feel like you can see it in his eyes as he's ignoring them crying and calling his name while he eats his mackerel. So it's kind of, it's depressing, and I think kind of, again, going back to Kevin Smith talking about it on his podcast, where, he sets it out to be kind of a funny thing, almost absurd in a sense, but it really does hit where it's like, ugh, this is just, it's creepy, so
Mhm.
I think he set out to make this absurdly creepy film, and I think he knocked it out of the park, to be honest. I just don't
Heck
know
yeah.
if there's anything left in the tank
It's
for a
that's
sequel.
really where I'm sitting with this whole story. It's just like, is there anything left? I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, if he feels he does have more of a story to tell, then obviously go for it. I would say, like, if this is really where you want to go and want to take it, I'd love to see him come back and take a stab at this. Because, like, again, it's not like a Yoga Hosers, where Yoga Hosers, I can sit here and say, yeah, that movie's not great. It doesn't have a lot of really redeeming qualities to it. But this one, I feel like it has gotten kind of an unfair shake, especially as the years have gone on. I think if more people revisited it, they would be more impressed with the quality that it comes to. Like, it's been a number of years since I've even seen it, but the kind of nuances that you kind of saw in this film makes me excited. I do think I will watch it again here pretty soon, just after this conversation. But you are talking to somebody here who has been a big avid supporter of a Moose Jaws film since he pitched that idea. Me and my creature features guys. I think that a killer moose movie. Let's fucking go. And that's just kind of where I'm at with it. If it was between this or Moose Jaws, where my vote's at. It's Moose Jaws, but I mean, if he really thinks he's got more to tell, the only real thing I think they could do, and I don't even know if you really can, is kind of go back to the prequel with Michael Parks' character and kind of show a little bit more in detail that story with him and the walrus
Yeah.
and everything. So it's like, yeah, I mean, that's where I might go with it. But, I don't know. I'd be really curious to see what Kevin Smith's got kicking around in his head.
And going into just going back to Tusk for a minute, uh, Michael Parks. Oh my
Mm.
gosh. Like, there are only a few characters that I can say that I could truly listen. It's for that to them talk all day long. And that Howard Howe character of Michael Parks, in that just the way he presents it, the delivery, the word choice, the diction that I guess Kevin Smith has written for Howard Howe. Honestly, one of my favorite characters I've seen on screen, to be honest. Like, just uh perfection. So it's like I could not get enough. In Kevin Smith does, a lot of that is almost long shots of characters talking where not a lot is going on. But Michael Parks as Howard Howe really engages you. So you can be listening to a 5-minute conversation and it only feels like a minute because of so many interesting things that he's presenting and just how he carries himself in that film. That's the one big thing where it's like trying to do a prequel and trying to live up to that Michael Parks character would be you'd have big shoes to fill just
No,
because
I
it's like
agree.
he really, I mean, the film is interesting, but Michael Parks in that film, I mean, he's the MVP for me.
Mhm.
100%.
No, I agree with you there. He definitely sells it. I mean, and the beauty of it is that they worked together before with Red State, so they
Yep.
kind of already knew the dynamic they were playing off each other. So I think like in this, he even did a better job because now he knows how to write for the actor that
Yep.
he's casting. I think he already had it in mind who he wanted to play this character, and it's always wonderful when you can kind of tee yourself up almost and kind of be like, this is who I have playing this in my mind. If they accept, then we're good to go. So. Yeah.
And just briefly going into Tusk 2 here, would you have, as we'd be revisiting it, let's say in more current time, and let's say Justin Long has been kind of, I don't know if you would want to say rehabbed in a sense. I don't know exactly what went on under that walrus costume in terms of what his anatomy looks like anymore. But let's say he maybe has come out of that. Maybe he shed his walrus skin, and he's trying to at least do some sort of normal life, whether he has legs, doesn't have legs, has teeth, doesn't have teeth. Would he take the Michael Parks character and be
And
obsessed with creating a walrus-like character?
you're not the first person to bring that up. I did hear when there was coverage of this earlier this week, somebody brought that up too, where they were just like maybe Justin Long comes out of it and then he becomes the Michael Parks character in a sense. And I'm like, that would be interesting. Again, I don't go into specifics from what I remember of how that works in there. I feel like it would be kind of a stretch because it looks like he's pretty well stitched in that thing, but at the end of the day, if they can sell it to me that they get him out, and they do, Justin Long is a fantastic actor. And I think that, if you really give him that juicy of a role to where he's almost playing this like serial killer, traumatized kind of, guy who is also trying to take on that walrus making thing, and he's making his own walruses. Maybe, yeah, like instead of one walrus, it's walruses. Like I want to see. I think that would be a nice way to go about it. But yeah, again, I don't know. I really don't know where I sit with this as far as like if this is really what I want him to do. But again, if it does come to fruition, I'll be there. I will watch it, and because I do like the first one, so.
And then I'm just gonna pose one last question here. I know we're already running a little bit long on Tusk 2, but where it's like, where we're both sitting here saying, I mean, you could do this or you could do that, but not necessarily does Tusk 2 need a sequel. And we're coming off of I watched Orphan First Kill a few weeks ago and was pleasantly surprised at the route that they went, and I didn't know that they were really going to offer anything new, but they did. And then an article comes out saying, well, if 2 is good, they want to do 3. And we're in this world of so many different sequels and so many different properties going on. And we've lived through so many different, we love the slashers and things like that, and you can really see, Jason Goes to Hell, Jason Takes Manhattan, a lot of these different things, Freddy's Dead, where it's like, okay, we can clearly tell that this franchise is off the rails. I mean, like, is that where we're kind of at right now, where so many people are just going to be running off the rails? Because I mean, like, as soon as I saw Orphan 3, I was like, really? I mean, it was a stretch to do 2, and you did it competently, but to do 3, I mean, you're really pushing it. So it's like, are we just gonna be keep getting so many different sequels out of all these things until like there's absolutely nothing left? I mean, like look at Saw, so
Yeah, I don't think this necessarily is headed in that direction. But I mean, if you want to talk about things like Orphan 3, then yeah, I feel like it could be headed that way again. But for me, like this seems just like he wouldn't just do this if he didn't have an idea. I know that some people are going to say it's blasphemous and call me like, many names in the books for just even saying this, but I feel like, Kevin Smith has a little bit more credibility than that to just kind of be like, well, let's just franchise the shit out of this. This and Yoga Hosers are in the same universe.
yes.
They're in the same, yeah, they follow characters that are in the same thing. So I feel like we would be more in line to be getting more stories set in this universe as opposed to just Tusk 2, 3, 4, stuff like that. And maybe we pick up a little bit here and there. You know what I mean? Like maybe Justin Long gets brought up. Maybe they're just like, yeah, I'm gonna go to the zoo and see the human walrus or whatever. You know what I mean? And stuff like that. That's kind of where I would see it going. As opposed to sequelizing it like they would in the 80s. But if it did go that way, I'd be pretty disappointed. I think,
Yeah.
because I don't know if it has that many legs. Like I said, we don't even know if it has legs for a sequel, let alone multiple after
Yeah.
that. And
I guess
you're
like
saying that with Orphan, that's like, yeah, that's rough. I did end up finding out what the story is for Orphan 2, and kind of going through it, and that was cool. Like good on them for kind of switching it up there. But yeah, no, how would you go forward with this any further?
yeah,
I don't know.
you would have to keep at least with Orphan, you have to keep doing prequels
Yeah,
apparently
almost. Or yeah, I
because they keep
guess.
intertwining the current story. So it's like, well, you just have to keep going back and back and back.
Maybe
But with
there's
like
one more
Tusk,
family between this and the next.
yes, in with like Tusk, it surprises me. Kevin Smith does go back. He does what, Clerks 2. I think he's doing Mallrats too. Jane, Silent Bob. The
Mhm.
reboot, things like that, where he goes back to these films that he kind of he's really known for, like the tone that he's known for in a sense, and these kind of iconic characters that he's created. Tusk wasn't really that. Tusk was kind of more so a one-off. So it did surprise me to say that, oh, we may be doing a sequel to this. And yeah, like you're saying, it feels like he does have an idea here, but in to kind of keep pushing it, because there has been going through for this story, there's been kind of a few different uh, news stories saying, "Oh, wait, Tusk 2 may be coming out," or there may be an idea out there. So this isn't like necessarily a new news story. Um, so I mean, he must have been toying with this for quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see. I know he likes to sit on his ideas, and this could just be a headline for a couple weeks, and then it disappears, and then maybe we'll get back on Moose Jaws. We'll have to see, because I know Clerks 3 is getting close to coming out, so could be talked about a little bit more. We will just have to see. We'll see what the next couple of years bring with this, because I don't know what the turnaround would be on this, especially since like some of the cast was surprised. I don't necessarily know if Justin Long would be on board to do this. I know they're
Yeah,
good buddies, so but really ultimately I feel like if you can't get him back, then you just shouldn't do it.
we'll see. I mean, like you, I'm a fan of Kevin Smith, so whatever he's attached to, I'll at least give one watch to, unless it's Yoga Hosers. But um, let's move on to our next story here. Hell just got a little hotter as we got a look at its newest priestess. Images were released for the new Hellraiser movie on Hulu next month, including Jamie Clayton as Pinhead, and she's looking pretty badass. Director David Bruckner said, "This is not a remake to the original. This is a new story in the Hellraiser universe." The images seem to have captured the dark essence the Hellraiser franchise displayed in the first couple of films. Will we follow Bruckner into the seventh circle of hell to see all the sights he has to show us? Dylan, I know this is the story that you brought to my attention.
Yes.
Um, a couple days ago, you were like, well, we might want to talk about this. I know, and I was a little
Yes.
hesitant because we just covered Hellraiser, and I didn't want too much of an overlapping conversation, but there was a decent amount of the images, the story that it's kind of following, things like that. So I don't know. After seeing this, I mean, I was intrigued with the talent attached, but it really does seem like they've captured that Hellraiser uh, feeling, because it's like I've superficially watched some of the later ones just because, and they're horrible. They're really bad. That you can't even sit through. So it's like I watch 5 or 10 minutes of it, and I'm like, okay, yep, this is what I was expecting, and then you turn it off. This, just from the stills, it seems very intriguing.
Oh yeah, no, it is. I mean, David Bruckner is somebody who's been on my radar for a minute, and I mean the writers of this too. They're reteaming with him. We have Ben Collins and Luke Petrowski. I gotta remember how to say his name correctly, but those two guys are coming back, and they are behind this in the writers' room, as well as like I said, David Bruckner in the director's chair. They did The Night House, which was based off of a Hellraiser script.
Which I didn't know that.
So,
I saw that in the news article, but I had no
mhm.
idea that that was the case going into that.
It's one of those things where when I'm watching the movie, I'll be upfront. I've never seen Hellraiser. So it's one of those things where it's like I could see the DNA of it. When you kind of get into it, I don't want to spoil too much on the Night House, but like there's an element where they pick up a totem of sorts at some point, and it just very much felt that kind of that feeling, that tonality there. And a lot of people who are big Hellraiser fans that I'm subscribed to really love that movie and say that it would have made a perfect Hellraiser story if you just change a couple of elements. So the fact that they're actually able to come back and do this and actually throw their hat in the ring is really exciting. It's really cool. And we got the little teaser trailer and the announcement that it was coming out this October, like a week or two ago now. We didn't cover it on the channel at all. We're waiting until we at least get a full trailer. But I mean, yeah, there was a lot of stuff that came with this. Like in that interview, I think like just the fact alone that David Bruckner was so upfront about saying, hey, this is not a remake. It takes place in the same universe. It's just a different way of telling the story, or just a different evolution to it. It's great, because he even states that he's a huge fan of Hellraiser, the first one. And why would you ever go and remake that movie? It's kind of like if we went to like asking me to remake The Thing, and you know what I mean, like, or it's just one of those things where it's like I wouldn't necessarily go back and remake it. Like, why would you do that? Go ahead and take those basic concepts and take your own spin to it.
Yeah.
That's ultimately what you need to do with a remake.
Yeah.
So this is really cool. Like this is really showing a lot of confidence. And Jamie Clayton looks amazing. I mean, like she's really selling it. And I mean, just props to them too for having the balls and the gall to cast a trans actor for this. And it's so refreshing, because from what I understand, for someone who hasn't seen Hellraiser, I do know a little bit about the source material and stuff like that, and the sense of that Hellraiser themselves, it's never necessarily specified whether they're male or female. It's supposed to kind of be a gray area. So it's fucking perfect that we're living in a society and an age where it's like this is more accepted. So now we can actually get a more true to form portrayal of this. And I think, like, I mean, we see that image right up there. They look great. And I think that I'm excited to see the performance. I'm excited to see that trailer, just to hopefully get a little bit of a tease of it. And I mean, if you want to even pile on to it, Doug Bradley made some comments this week saying that he's super excited to see it. Because he has also been, he's like, oh, I wore a skirt, like, in the original film. Like, he's like, it's always been something where it's like, in my mind, kind of leaned whether or not I was male or female. The fact that we're able to do that, a little bit more like closer to the source material, he's on board. And it's like, that's great. Whenever you can get the original people behind it on this too, it's like all signs are pointing up for Hellraiser right now.
Yeah. And like for anyone to be kind of a stickler on gender for any of this stuff is just ridiculous, because like you're saying, they're Cenobites. You know what I mean? Where it's like
Yeah,
we're
it's
not dealing with um the human form in any sense, really. So it's like by that time they've been completely altered, and they're a supernatural being. So to kind of if that's a deterrent for you to watch this, I mean, absolutely ridiculous. But
they grow up.
just going into the actual images themselves, I mean, Jimmy Clayton, again, it looks perfect. I mean, it's only a still. I'm very intrigued to see the actual like trailer footage itself, to see what everything looks like. But I'm sold on the few that we did get. The new Cenobite, I think they're calling him the Mask, maybe, I think is what
Yeah,
it
the
was.
mask. Mhm.
A very dark image, but looks very intriguing. I'm excited to see what kind of different elements they bring. The Hellraiser universe is so expansive, so different than anything that we're seeing. Again, this came out in, I think, '88, and at that time, we're heavy into Friday 13th, Halloween, all this. We're really into form with the slasher. So Hellraiser coming out really brought something very different that we were not seeing at all at that time. So. Uh, I'm very intrigued to see what happens. I think what in because we did the Dog Soldiers things, and I know that they mentioned Hellraiser on that being like probably the biggest independent British film, maybe at least during that time. I think that's what it was. Don't absolutely quote me on that, but I think it was on one of the commentaries. So I mean, this is a very iconic film, and to see it, I like the first and I like the second. I've tried to watch some of the ones after that, and to see the quality. And I mean, going through the '90s, I guess it's not necessarily unheard of, but to see the quality dip so awfully bad to where it became like, I think it's the latest one that had come out. I mean, was honestly one of the films where I watched about 10 minutes of it and I had to turn it off because it was just that awful. So seeing the quality that they're presenting here, to know that the Night House had started out as a potential Hellraiser installment, gives me so much hope to see where this is gonna lead us. Again, Prey was a huge hit for Hulu. I think they're gonna have another hit with this Hellraiser. Hopefully, I don't know. Have they said if there's gonna be another one following this, or is
We
this
don't
like a
know yet.
okay?
So I mean, like it's still up in the air, but I mean, it would be great if we could get another shot, another crack at a couple of sequels for this. I mean, that'd be awesome for Hulu. Hulu would be dominating the horror streaming space at that point with just originals. And I mean, like if they can knock this one out of the park, I think that you see a lot more stuff going to Hulu as far as like original films from IP.
Yeah.
So, just one of those things where it's like, what you could see kind of fall on there next. I don't know. Maybe they do another, and I bring this up. We brought this up in the NECA stuff. Was maybe we get another installment or something in regards to The Fly. Maybe you get something with like the Blob, anything like that. Like I'm just rattling things off here, but like if Hulu's starting to gain that pedigree of like, we can take franchise like established franchises or established films and bring new life to them with some respect and some actual like, uh I guess what am I looking for? Gusto behind them, then like
Yeah.
absolutely, let's do it. Because like if this comes out and is even like a fraction of the quality of Prey, then like we're in a good space.
You're just randomly bringing stuff up here, but I would love like a 10-part series to The Fly where you're really diving deep into Seth Brundle's madness after kind of that being crossed with The Fly, and really just do very slow, very expansive types things with it. I think that would be very intriguing. So
Oh
it's like
yeah,
I think Hellraiser is gonna open Hell's Gates a little bit, and
open the box.
exactly, and we're gonna see a flooding of a lot of different horror properties, probably on Hulu. I think maybe that's where they'll find their home. With Prey, with Hellraiser. I mean, I think Hellraiser. I know we talked about Halloween Ends coming to an end for a bit, and then maybe Jason Voorhees picking up the machete and doing some killing. But I don't know. I think Hellraiser is probably going to do some damage as well. I think this is going to be one that's going to probably be out there for general audiences to find.
It's going to be a good couple of weeks, I'll tell you that, because we're going to have that, and then like the next week is Halloween Ends.
Yeah.
So it's like it's going to be a great couple weeks for sure.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of different horror films properties coming out in October. It's going to be busy for us creating and also consuming.
100%.
All right, let's move into our last topic here on the Sunday Scaries. If booking an Airbnb didn't already make you nervous, wondering if someone is recording you while dropping a deuce, you will have a new level of paranoia after this week. Barbarian is the new film from Zach Krager that will hit theaters on September 9th. The film stars Georgina Campbell as Tess, a woman who books a rental home during a job interview. But when she arrives, she realizes Keith, Bill Skarsgård, has already made himself at home. After the two make a compromise to spend the night in the house, things get weirder and weirder as Tess finds a secret door and passageways underneath the house. Is this going to be a perfect bookend horror film for the summer, or should Billy Boy stick to the makeup and clown shoes? Now, this one I was pretty sold on after seeing the trailer for the first time. Dylan, I think you had a little different experience, didn't you?
Yeah, no, this is just one of those ones where I was just like, okay, yeah, it is what it is. I saw the trailer, I think, before the Black Phone, and
Yes.
a couple other times it had come out. It really wasn't until they had some early screenings come out where people got to see this and really start talking about it. Saw a lot of people talking very positively about this movie, and that's intriguing to me. And then I learned a couple things about a few of the extra cast members in this that I didn't expect. And I was just kind of like, let's give this one a shot. My anticipation went up a few clicks. So
Now, what you learned, is that spoiler territory, or what are we talking here?
I don't know. And it's like I don't want to bring it up if you don't know about it already. So it's like, do you know who's a lot of the cast members in this other than Bill Skarsgård and our lead?
I do not. I haven't done any research on
Okay,
it.
then we'll leave it at that. Because there's an actor in there that we both enjoy, and I think that it would be cool. It's intriguing that they're in this. So, I don't know, and I like I said, I heard some positive stuff about it, so I'm a little bit more intrigued. Like this could have been a little bit more like for all intents and purposes and honesty. For me, when I first saw the trailer, this was more on the side of like last week's The Invitation.
Yes.
Where I was kind of like, oh, okay, whatever, and didn't really want to see it, so we didn't. And this would have probably been in that camp had I not learned some of this stuff. And we didn't really discuss it, so I didn't know that you were pretty positive on it from the first initial trailer. So,
Yeah.
And I mean, like, if it was something that you wanted to see, obviously I'd go see it. But like, it's one of those things where it would have been like, I could pass on this, at least wait till streaming or something for it.
Yeah, and for me, again, I haven't done a lot of research on this at all. Just a trailer, even the very beginnings of that trailer, but before we really get into the passageways and anything like that, just the tension they kind of build. Where I think that whole idea of an Airbnb is still a very good idea that hasn't really been maybe expanded upon in terms of its fullest potential yet. And having someone arrive at a rental home and someone already being there, and I mean, how can you dispute that type of thing? So that kind of tension that they built, the creepiness of her laying in bed and then hearing the running down the hall, I think it was very creepy. I think it was very well done. So I'm very intrigued to see what kind of tension they build throughout this film and where exactly the story leads, because this is one of those films where I have no clue of what they can do. Like looking at The Invitation, where it's like, a lot of people made that comparison to Ready or Not and said, well, this seems very similar to this. Barbarian doesn't seem like you can really compare it to anything, because I have no clue what the story is going to be. And I think they've done a very, very great job just kind of giving you just enough to be intrigued, but not enough to really be able to gauge where the story is going to go. So, again, yeah, I'm sold on it. I was definitely, I mean, again, I don't know what you know about it. I was going to go see it regardless, just because I wasn't sure if we were going to do anything. I was like, I'll just do a short on it if we weren't really going to cover anything on it. But yeah, this one I'm very intrigued about. Bill Skarsgård is Pennywise. I could take him or leave him. I mean, sometimes he's great. Sometimes, I'm not really sold. But I don't know. I think he's got I think he can play a villain extremely well, and I'm assuming that's what he's going to be in this. Again, I don't know. It seems like that's the route that they're leaning toward, but I'm very intrigued. I want to see it. I can't wait. I think this will be a good bookend to the summer.
I hope so. I'm also very intrigued. I think, like I said, now that I know a little bit more of what I know, it really gives me that kind of. It gives me a little bit more of anticipation. I think that's going to be a fun night, and I really do hope, like you said, it's a good, fun end of the summer. And it's interesting. Again, it'll be original. You know what I mean? It'll be an original film.
Yeah.
From the most part, from what we can tell, and from what I have heard, it's very original. And we had The Black Phone, which felt like a very original kind of horror film this year, and I think I'd like another one. I'd like another couple if we can get them.
Yeah,
Not
and
all horror has to be big IPs. Doesn't have to be Halloween and Hellraiser. It can be something new.
And that's where it's like, going into The Black Phone, you kind of knew certain things about it, but you didn't know what kind of experience you were in for. Hellraiser looks great, but seeing the original Hellraiser, I kind of know what kind of experience I'm going to be in for when I sit down and turn on Hulu and turn on Hellraiser. Whereas like Barbarian, I don't know what to expect when I go sit down in the theater, and I love not knowing what to expect. Beast, I didn't know what to expect sitting down in the theater. So, had a lot of good surprises thus far. So I'm hoping Barbarian is one of them as well.
I agree with you. I really hope that it can knock it out of the park, and we're only about a week away. So you will know our thoughts this time next week.
This is true.
Absolutely. Alrighty, so I think it's about time we get into the final segment of the show, my little segment here, which we call this week's Gorecast.
The top of the world, fabulous 1340 KAV, Antonio Bay.
Yes, so now we got ourselves a graphic. Like I said, I would have one this week. Didn't size it correctly, so bear with me. We'll get there. But yeah, so we had a pretty busy week here on the Gorecast. We had quite a lot coming out. And also, I do want to mention, I lifted these from Fangoria. Just so happened they popped up, these little, for the streaming month section. So thank you, Fangoria, for posting these up on Twitter. They are perfect. So if you guys want to take a look at that list, pause this so you can kind of see every streaming service and every little thing that's horror related coming to each and every one of them. So that way, whatever you own, whether it's Shudder, Amazon Prime, Netflix, or even the Scream Factory TV, you can find a list right here telling you what's going on, and I'll make sure to leave that up all month long for you guys. But yes, so as far as Blu-ray and 4K announcements, it was a pretty stacked week, Luke. We had quite a bit. And there was even some stuff that I couldn't even put on here just because I kind of had to call it at some point. Otherwise, we would have just all been Blu-rays and 4K announcements, because Scream Factory, again, has just been killing it recently. So, not to start off with any Scream Factory stuff here, actually, but the Saw Ultimate Collection was announced. Now, they have this version of it now. Necessarily, they say it's a version, so I don't know if this is actually going to be coming out like in and of itself as its own thing, but these are all coming out on 4K. They'll be coming out on the 9th of November, and you get like a reverse Bear Trap box set. They're only making 1,500 of them. Luke, did you get a chance to take a look at that?
I did take a look at it. Hey, cool if you're, a Saw fan, I suppose. I guess some things I wrestle with here were, I think this is 4K, isn't it?
Yes, this is 4K. So it's going to be all transferred, all updated. And I believe it's the first time you're going to be able to get them all on 4K.
Okay. Which, for me, I don't know necessarily if I've, been clamoring for a 4K release of any of the Saw films. But, I mean, it looks cool. I'm a sucker for unique packaging. Am I a sucker enough to actually go out and buy the full Ultimate Collection of Saw? Absolutely not. I don't think again, I've seen like the first two. I can say I've seen the first two. And then beyond that, they kind of run together in a sense.
Yeah, and I will say it's got a pretty big price tag on it at $400.
I didn't know it was
So
that much.
yeah, so it's going to be quite a bit of money. So definitely, if you're a Saw fan, I'd say hop on that, but you got to be a pretty dedicated Saw fan
Yes.
to fork over that kind of cash for it. But moving on from that, we also got an announcement of a movie that isn't one that necessarily Luke and I are huge fans of. We've both seen. You've seen it, right?
No.
You've never seen it? Okay,
No,
good.
I don't have any interest.
Yeah, I've seen it. It was one that came through the video store that we used to work at, and yeah, it's a Serbian film. It's coming to 4K. Now, that's a surprising one. I didn't necessarily think that a movie like that would come to 4K.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's got its fans, I guess you could say. It's got people who are gore hounds who want that most intense, fucked up thrill ride they can find. And if that's you, then that's coming to 4K for you. I won't be adding it to my collection. I've seen it once. I don't need to see it again.
You know, I just can't imagine someone going into a store and saying, I need a 4K version of a Serbian film.
Yeah, no, it's I feel like it'll be online orders only. Show up in that discreet packaging and everything like they like to advertise. But yeah, no, this is just a really tough movie. I mostly put it on here just because again, I didn't suspect this would ever get a 4K of all things. But hey, stranger things have happened. So, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, if I guess if you're into that, it'll be out at some point. There was no date to attach to it. It was just announced that it is coming. And I believe that's coming from Vinegar Syndrome.
Oh boy. That'll be a
Yes.
fun time.
Yes. And then moving on to some actual fun stuff. Piranha 1978 is getting a 4K release on the 1st of November. So I did trade up a couple of my Blu-rays this week. I traded in my Dog Soldiers. I traded in my Army of Darkness, my unrated Evil Dead, and this was one of them as well because I do plan on picking this up in 4K. You guys know I love my creature features, and if you've watched anything of the Fast Food Frights, I like my my water monsters just as much. And the original Piranha is just one that I can throw on. It's Joe Dante. It's a whole lot of fun. It's cheesy as hell, but it is a great time, and I'm super excited to see this thing come to 4K.
Yeah, and Piranha's one I haven't seen yet, and I know they have the sequel, right? That Jim Cameron did. Is that right?
Yeah, The Spawning. I've
Yeah.
never seen it, but that's just because it's hard to get a hold of.
So Piranha's one. I don't know. Do you think we'll ever do that on the podcast?
Oh yeah, we'll definitely be covering Piranha
Yeah.
and
So
Piranha
I mean,
3D
it's not
as
one
well.
I'm gonna initially pick up here for 4K. I haven't even seen it the Blu-ray copy or anything like that. But if you get it, I will gladly borrow it and see if I can make the leap in actually purchasing it myself. But it's very
a fun
intriguing.
movie.
What'd you say?
It's a very fun movie.
And that's what that's all you can hope for, I feel. But it's like very intriguing times that Piranha is getting a 4K release.
I know, right? I love that. I love the times we're living in. But it's for a little history for you, it's a Roger Corman production, and like I said, Joe Dante is at the helm of this one. So we're talking the guy who did The Howling and Gremlins and all kinds of great shit. So it's like this is one of the movies that he kind of cut his teeth on, for lack of a better term. And then another one that I have not seen, but I hear is actually a fantastic werewolf film. I don't know if you've seen it, Luke, but The Company of Wolves is coming out on the 15th on 4K. So, and I don't know if this necessarily had a Scream Factory release beforehand, because I'd never seen it, but it is being released by Scream Factory, and it is, like I said, it's coming out on the 15th on 4K. A lot of
And
people were
this one
excited about this one.
I have not seen this film. I actually ran more so across it while was doing something with dog soldiers, and this popped up. So I was looking into it a little bit. I don't know too much about it though. I'm very intrigued for this one. Again, what are these? These are all 4K releases. It's just wild that we're getting all these smaller titles that are just 4K releases here. But yeah, this
Hmm.
is one I definitely want to check out. Is it going to be a day one purchase for me? No. Depending on reviews, I'll probably do a little more research on it. Um, and see. I mean, a werewolf film in 4K. I mean, how could you go wrong? But we'll see. We'll see about that one because I was definitely intrigued reading the synopsis, doing my dog soldiers research. So it's one I definitely want to check out, but I don't think I'll make that leap and get that 4K version right out of the gate.
No, I feel you there. I might try to grab it just because, if it is a werewolf movie, there's a good chance I'll probably enjoy it. But like you, I am intrigued. I do want to check it out. So yeah, that's gonna wrap it up for Blu-ray and 4K announcements. Like I said, all 4Ks this week. Really, we said it a bunch here. Is this is very interesting that we're getting some of these niche releases. And they really killed it. I got all my information from Dawn of the Disc. Those guys are fantastic over there, always keeping us up to date and current with anything coming out on Blu-ray. Luke's still on the lookout for any information about that image of the Killer Clowns 4K. Nothing just yet, but I'm hoping that one of these weeks I can surprise you and throw that bad boy on the list.
And then I'll start crying here on the
Yeah.
podcast.
There you go. And then yes, popping over to in theaters, we did just do a little segment on it, so we don't have to talk about it very much. But Barbarian coming out at the end of the week here on the 9th. So definitely, if you're trying to get to the theater to see some horror movies, this would be one of the weeks to do it. September is looking pretty stacked as well for horror films. Some good, some bad. But I don't know yet, but some don't look very good. But we are going to have a pretty big month coming into here, and then October itself is going to be pretty huge. So, there will be a lot to see at the theater. And then obviously, like I said, for this month in streaming, there's a ton that's coming to your streaming projects for your consumption. I think one of the big things I wanted to highlight for streaming, may talk about it a little bit because I used to be a fan of the original version of it. But they're doing the 101 scariest horror movie moments. Did you ever watch that as a kid?
No, I never. No, I did watch it. Yes, I did.
I loved those. I thought they were awesome because there were certain ones that certain movies I just hadn't seen. So they were like my only exposure to it. The only way I could see it was watching these clips. And I have a big soft spot in my heart for it. I found that the original streaming or the original show is all on YouTube, so you can watch that on there. So yeah, I might flip that on to catch up just before the first episode drops of this.
Because I know that was my exposure to some horror films that I had never seen before. Because again, it wasn't as accessible as things are now. So it was like you'd only see like one little scene of something. You'd be like, oh, what is that? I need to check it out. So I used to love those things because you would uncover so many different properties in just one sitting. So I'll definitely check that out. Would you say they're streaming it?
Oh, Shudder has
okay.
that one. Yep, that'll be one of their new original
and we
series.
have our commitment to Shudder. So
yep, absolutely. But yeah, that's gonna wrap it up for Gorecast this week. So thank you for tuning in.
Sorry, not to cut you off though, but I know it's not coming up in September, but I wanted to mention it because trick or treat.
Oh yeah, I was debating on whether or not I wanted to throw that out there or not because I figured maybe we could cover that in full on maybe something later. But no time like the present. Getting its first ever theatrical release. Yes. So yes, that's going to be something that you and I are probably definitely going to have to get tickets for. I know we say that a lot for things and we kind of let stuff slip by, but I want to be present for that.
Me too.
That's awesome. That's a milestone.
I was very excited just to see that headline to say it's going to be in theaters because again, it just got that DVD release. I remember trying to get a hold of that thing at Hollywood Video at the time, and
Mm.
I didn't get it until after Halloween. So I'm very excited to see this one in the theater. We will definitely get tickets, but we'll cover it farther down the line. I just could not contain my enjoyment of hearing that headline of Trick or Treat will be in theaters.
Are you a Trick or Treat fan by any chance?
No, I actually hate the movie. I like the one. There's a Trick or Treat with Gene Simmons.
Yeah, no, that's my preferred one too. Where it's
Exactly.
about
That's
the
the right
evil
one. That's the
record or
right one to
whatever.
like.
Yeah, no, but as you guys can tell, we do have our affinity for the little guy Sam. I got him in my display back there, and Luke has many items involving the little guy right there.
Such a great character.
Yeah, and one of my coworkers, actually a fellow YouTuber that I used to work with, Andrew Wright from Review the Right Thing, he actually turned me on to a tattoo that is actually really awesome that he wants to get that I wish I could steal from him. It's Sam holding a lollipop looking up at Michael Myers, holding up his lollipop. Because those two could just go hand in hand for the Halloween season, in my opinion. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's why I have him displayed with my two Michaels up there. Just because, like I said, they would work so well together. Yeah, so definitely exciting. You'll probably hear a little bit more about that as we go along down the way with that. We'll have to do something with that, especially if we go see it. Well, maybe do a short review to talk about, how it looked on the big screen and everything like that. Because
Yeah.
oh God, I'd love to see that movie on the big screen.
Yeah, that is one we have actually in all our different renditions of podcasts and things. We've never covered Trick or Treat, and it's very odd. Do you think that would have been one of the ones that we would have
We
been a headline for something? But not yet.
Yeah, and we've talked about it a ton. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's one that we've wanted to do for a while. I remember when my dad rented that from Netflix. We got the DVD and we watched it, and it was awesome. I mean, like, it was just one that I was so impressed with because, like, anthologies were not something I was super keen on or even really
They can
into.
be
The
a
only
hard
one,
sell, to be honest, in terms of
yeah,
storytelling. If it's not done right, it really you clock out and you're like, okay, we're done here.
Yeah, and one of the things I'd really only seen Creepshow at that point that was like a true anthology. And with that being my first R-rated film that I ever saw, this was like kind of shortly after that I saw this, and it was definitely great. Like, it was one of those ones where I was just like, because that one, Creepshow's separate stories. This one, watching them weave and interconnect and kind of see how it all wrapped up at the end there, I was just like, holy shit, this movie's amazing. And again, I love just seeing the evolution. Like you talked about Spirit Halloween with their killer clown stuff. The last few years, they've been killing it with always getting us trick or treat merchandise as well.
Yeah, it's once we started getting actual Sam and Trick or Treat merchandise, I had no idea how to act because it was like, you only have a small category of things that you can choose from for Trick or Treat, and then as soon as like Spirit got the license for it and it really opened up the doors, I was like, I'm gonna spend a lot of money going in here. And at least every Halloween I buy something from Spirit that has Sam on it.
100%. But all righty, well, I think that about wraps us up here. Luke, you got anything else for the people?
Well, keep a lookout on the channel. Keep patrolling. Obviously, if you're subscribed, you will get those updates of what we're releasing as we're trying to get as much content out there as possible. But if you haven't dove down the rabbit hole of all the content we have on the channel, we just did almost 3 hours on Dog Soldiers, so definitely check that one out. And then check out if you want to, if you're, well, I guess, I don't know, it's probably sold out now, but if you wish you had the NECA, the Thing poster figure, hey, we did a review on that, so definitely check that out. If you haven't got it, you can be
That was
jealous.
very fun.
If you have gotten it, well, and you haven't taken it out of the box, well, we'll let you know how it is when you do take it out of the box.
Yeah, no, that was a good time. We really enjoyed making that video. Kind of reflecting on it was one we were just like, that was good. Like, I just really I like doing that. And then I did a little 8 to 9 minute review, just going over the 4K transfer for the latest Dog Soldiers 4K. I actually still have it sitting next to me right here.
Which is, to be honest, to me, is tremendous. Dylan did it by himself, so I wasn't privy to it. I went back and I watched it, and just to see the comparisons of what it looked like and what it looks like now. I mean, that's an easy purchase for me now. After seeing that, you sold me on it.
Yeah, man. I mean, if you just want to borrow the 4K just to get a watch through yourself, it's impressive. Before you pull the trigger on it, because those stills, like I said, I got them off a website, and they weren't even the highest resolution they could have been. They were a little grainy
Yeah,
through the stream. Um, just because that's something I don't know how we're going to be able to do that in the future. I got lucky with finding those, but like I do want to incorporate that if I do like a transfer review. But like I just don't know if anybody has any suggestions for how I could, rip copies or get something going where it's like I can get my 4K version and the Blu-ray version side by side to compare. I'd love to do that because like I think that's super important when you talk about transfer and aspect ratio and all the kind of stuff that they do behind the scenes with that stuff. But yeah, no, it's still, like I said, it's so dramatic that
yeah,
you can even just tell how washed out that Blu-ray was. And like I said, it was one that I kind of just let go. But when I saw the 4K, I think everything kind of clicked with our full conversation on the podcast about it, where I'm just like, okay, I can totally see why Luke was not satisfied with this Blu-ray now that it's all kind of come full circle. And then you see those
yeah.
things side by side. Holy crap.
Because and it's like nothing against the film itself, but the quality there is almost jarring, where it doesn't feel like a real film. You know what I mean? Because it's so low quality, and then like seeing those stills, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to actually enjoy this film, without being distracted by the quality of the Blu-ray itself.
Yeah, it's glorious, and it's definitely a great testament to Neil Marshall and his cinematographer for, you know, getting their hands on that original negative and actually bringing us that. So thank you guys, because it's a film that we talked about it for nearly 3 hours. I cherish this movie. I think it's great, and it's one of those things where it's like I'm happy to own it in the best possible quality I can grab it in. So yeah, definitely, I'd say pick it up, man, for sure.
Definitely worth it.
Oh yeah, but yeah, if you guys do want to keep up with us, you can always follow us at Splattercast Pod on Twitter. We are also at Splattercast Pod on Instagram. I don't have that posted right now, but it's the same thing. So if you guys want to find us on there as well, you can keep up with us. It's a fresh new channel or site or social media page, whatever you want to
Medium.
call it. Yeah, it's on there. We'll just be posting some stuff on there. Probably a lot more of my NECA stuff I'll be posting pics of and things like that on there. I think that'd be a lot of fun, kind of going through the collection. We still got to talk about how we're going to utilize that, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like it's up there now, so you guys can keep up with us on both of those, as well as just go ahead and drop a comment if you want to talk about any of the topics we talked about today, or just anything going on the channel in general. We're here to talk, and we're here to just feel it out and see what we like and talk horror movies. And yeah, if you guys feel we deserve it, if you think we're putting in enough work or we're doing something right for you and you want to hit that subscribe button, please do. Like I said, we are on the road to 100 subs by the end of October is the goal. And we got a lot of great content coming for you guys. Again, I can't stress this enough. We really landed some big stuff this week. And if it all pans out right, it's gonna, like Luke said, be a real turning point for us, a getting of the hockey mask for Splattercast here, and I'm really excited to bring some of that to you guys. We're working really, really hard on some of this content, so hope you guys enjoy it.
Yep.
But yeah, I guess that about wraps it up for us. So want to take us out, Luke?
As always, I'm Luke Janesco,
And I'm Dylan Newell.
and friends, stay scared.